1, 2, 3. One of the interesting things about this product, and I do like the thicker pad, there's very little to no fragrance, very fair price. However, don't like the texture of the pad. So the value and market score. Hi, welcome to the K-Edit, where we decode K-beauty through culture, context, and strategy. I'm Helen, Editor-in-Chief at the K-Edit, with over a decade of experience in the beauty industry in New York at companies such as Estee Lauder, L'Oreal, Shiseido, and Coty. Today, I want to share something super exciting, which is the introduction of our very own product rating system. Working across many brands, I've often felt like cosmetics were talked about in a technical function as if they were a pharmaceutical category. However, beauty is not only functional, it's aspirational. So how it looks on your shelf, how it makes you feel, and what the brand represents, it's all part of the experience. So here at the K-Edit, we create a system that honors both, not only if the product works, but how it makes you feel. Because in cosmetics, experience isn't an option, it's crucial. So let's dive into it. So here's how it works. Every product is measured in two halves. The first is the experience and the second is the reality. And both are weighed equally. Because in cosmetics, the experience is just as important as the function. So there are 6 measures and each is rated out of 5. On the experience half, there's the visual identity, packaging, and sensory feel. The second half is reality, which includes formula, performance, and value. How well are the ingredients selected? How well is it formulated? And is it worth the value? And out of the 6 halves, performance carries the most weight, as it should. So there's one caveat rule, which is that no product can get the top verdict if the performance or formula integrity falls below 3 out of 5. So in other words, no matter how beautiful a product is or how seductive the story, it must perform. It all resolves to a final score and verdict. It goes from work in progress, has potential, promising, very good actually, and the very top tier, which is the editor's choice. If you want to see more in detail on how the rating system works, please follow the link below in the description. So let's begin. So today we're going to rate 3 of the most popular toner pads in the market today. Toner pad category in K-beauty is actually one of my favorite categories. I like to use them after I take a shower. It's such a perfect use of that 5 to 10 minute window. So not only are they super convenient, it hydrates my skin and preps my skin for makeup. Biodance really built their name with that collagen overnight mask that was everywhere, that we were all obsessed with. And this is the everyday idea of that. So it's a gel-coated toner pad that you use after cleansing to firm, hydrate, and prep your skin for makeup. And the whole story, again, is collagen. It's all about that glow, bouncy hydration. Let's see how it does. So the first is visual identity. This blush pink gel is very iconic to the Biodance brand. It's clean and modern, but it is consistent throughout, which makes it very recognizable, which is a good thing. So the packaging itself is not the most luxe, but I think it does the job. And I do like how there's a bit of a pink sheer thing going on where you can see inside, but it's not totally transparent. For visual identity, I would give it 4 out of 5. Next is the packaging. The product itself, it is a little bit bulky. It's not travel friendly. It does tend to leak. That can be an issue when you're traveling. The tub is pretty functional. I do like that the tweezers are in the middle. I haven't seen in any other products. They're typically on the lid, but it's more functional to use this way. Toner pads, I think they're a little bit too thin. I wish they were a little bit thicker so it wouldn't dry out as fast. So let's see how the product feels. These thin gel-coated pads, and they stick pretty well to the skin. It has that very iconic Biodance collagen kind of liquid feel, so it has like a bit of a coating. There's very little to no fragrance, good for daily use, and it leaves the skin feeling pretty plump. For sensory, I would score it 3.8 just because I think it has that little bit of a sticky feel. Let's talk about the formula integrity. It has a great blend of peptides, hyaluronic acid, galactomyces, allantoin, and no fragrance, which is perfect for sensitive skin. So it is a really smart formulation and it's not necessarily trend stacking. However, there's a little bit of an interesting story here. From the K-Edit perspective, we have to mention that because this product sells collagen idea first, and it promises to restore firmness from within. And that's not exactly how collagen works. So although we want to reward the formulation, it kind of holds back because it doesn't deliver exactly what it's intended to sell. Even with their claim at 243 Daltons, you can't actually use topical collagen from the outside in. So collagen is something that builds from the inside. So that claim is a little bit ahead of its science. So let's keep a tab on this collagen idea and go to the next product. So for formula integrity, 4 out of 5. For performance, 4.2. I do believe that it does what it's intended to do. Even though the firming is temporary, it still does pretty well. As for the value in market, 4 out of 5. So it's about $26 for 60 toner pads. I think it's a fair price. So the final verdict for the Biodance Gel Collagen Toner Pads is 4.0. Very good, actually. So it's actually a great product, and I think the formulation was curated very thoughtfully, but it does get minus points for selling an idea that doesn't get backed up by science just yet. When you buy products, I think it's good to keep in mind that some of the keywords that are used in the marketing may not be the full formulation or story that's behind the actual product. So the next product that's in between clarifying and calmness. Can you guess which product it is? Let's go find out. So the second product we're going to review today is Torriden's Balanceful Toner Pad. So this is not a glow pad, it's a calming and clarifying pad. So it has a little bit of a different function than the one we saw before. This toner pad has two sides, one that's embossed and the other that's smooth for dual functions. Most of the claim is that it clarifies and balances your skin. So for the visual identity, I think Torriden's branding is pretty iconic as well because you can identify it pretty easily. It is modern and it's very simple, but I would say it's also a little bit basic and it's not super special. However, the brand does read trustworthy, so I think that's a good point. So for visual identity, I would give it 4 out of 5. And then let's discuss packaging. This packaging is pretty basic and generic. However, it does do its function. The main thing I don't like about this product packaging is that container itself is quite large. In general, as a rule, I don't like products that are over packaged. That gets a little bit of points minus from that category. I do like how it's clear, so you can see exactly how much you have left, and dual texture design, which I think is very thoughtful. I do like the thicker pads, but sometimes they don't stick to the face as well, so that's just something to know. So for packaging, I think I would give it 3.7. Let's get into the sensory. So if you open, the tweezers are on the lid, which I don't actually prefer because I find it difficult to pick them out and put it back in. So then you pick up the pad. As you can see, it's dual-sided. So this side is to exfoliate, and then the other side is to soothe. So depending on your use, you can have both uses. It's lightweight, it has a slight scent, but it's not offensive. It sticks to the skin pretty well. So for the sensory experience, I think I would rate it 3.9. Next is the formula integrity, and this is actually the category that Torriden quietly shines. There's 5 types of centellas to calm your skin. There's gentle LHA and PHA acid to gently exfoliate your skin. Plus, there's panthenol and hyaluronic acid to moisturize your skin as well. And the pH level is very low, which is very comfortable and good for sensitive skin. So the ingredients in here are very thoughtful and they're very well used. And I don't think that there was any ingredient in here that wasn't here for a purpose. Also, after the collagen conversation we just had, I have to mention that for this product, it does exactly what it claims. So it's important to note that the Torriden toner pads deliver exactly what they promise, which gets a lot of points in this category. So for this product and formula integrity, I would give it 4.5. So the next category is performance, and this product is not so much of a prep and glow, it's more for clarifying and balancing your skin. So this product is great for oily and combination skin because it balances your skin's barrier. The caveat here is that because it is a gentle exfoliant, it's not necessarily the best for daily use, and I wouldn't use it every day, especially if you have sensitive skin. So adding this a few times a week in your routine is probably the best way to approach it. And the score for performance for this product is 4.4. This product is about $20 to $26 and it has 60 large pads. I think it's a very fair price. So for value in market, I would give it 4.5. So the final verdict for Torriden's Balanceful Toner Pad is 4.2. Very good actually. This is a great score, mostly due to its honest, gentle formula and also the value that it brings. This product does exactly what it says it will do, and it's at a great price point. So finally, we're at the third and last product. This product rating might surprise you a little bit. Let's go find out. Okay, so the third and final product is Mediheal's Collagen Firming Pad. So we all know the brand Mediheal for their sheet masks. This is a toner pad version that includes 100 toner pads per container. So the promise for this product is firmer skin, fewer lines, and more elasticity. However, the main story is collagen, so it kind of goes back to the initial question that we were talking about earlier. Does collagen actually work topically? So let's get into the rating. For this product, the visual identity, I actually thought it was kind of a weak component. I thought the branding was very, very basic and not very special. It didn't feel necessarily very thoughtful, and to me, it kind of screamed more value than desire. So the visual identity, I would rate it 3.6. For the packaging, it's interesting how they made it into this square shaped, and I give it points for kind of thinking outside the box. However, I feel like it's kind of bulky unnecessarily. Inside, you can see that one of the interesting things about this product is this spoolie tool, instead of the tweezers that we saw in the other products, and it actually works quite well in picking up the product, so I give it extra points for this special creativity, also for the function. I do like the bigger pads, but I don't like the texture of the pads as much. Also, when I was opening this product, the peel didn't peel off very cleanly, so I had a little bit of a trouble doing that. However, I also give it extra points for this refill mechanism. So the total score for packaging for this product is 3.6. So let's get into the sensory. It has a light scent, which is pleasant. However, I can't give it too much points because this is a daily use product and we don't really want products that are too fragrance loaded. So for the sensory portion, I think I would give it 3.8. For formula integrity, this is a little bit of an interesting one, again, that kind of is similar with Biodance's in that the formulation itself has a lot of potential. The collagen here is a plant-derived collagen, which is vegan collagen, also known as the carrot collagen. It works by hydrating your skin, but it doesn't actually build the collagen. And the firming that comes from this product is really from the peptides and retinol. And it's genuinely a good formulation. It has a good mix of the retinol and peptides. The irony is that it is a loaded product with great potential. However, it's named after one ingredient to use as the main hook. So in conclusion, good actives, an overstated headline, and a little bit too much fragrance kind of gets the minus mark for this product. So for the formula integrity category, I'll give it 3.8. So let's get into performance. For daily instant hydration, I think the product does do fine. However, it just doesn't excite me a little bit too much. Also, on a practical note, this product contains retinol, so it should be used at night and you should put SPF on the next morning. So for performance, I would rate it 3.7. For the value in market, this is kind of where this product does its redemption. It's about $24 for 100 pads, which obviously you get the most bang for your buck. So if you want no fuss hydration and quantity is your priority, then this is a product that you can go for. So the value in market score is 4.8. So the final verdict for Mediheal's collagen firming pad is 3.8. The reason is it does have great value. However, we held back points because there's a little bit too much fragrance for the purpose of this product. And there is a bit of a shaky identity for what it markets and what it actually delivers, and the slightly bulky packaging. We didn't punish the price, but we did question the promise. So here's where we landed with all three pads. Torriden got 4.2, very good actually, which is the highest score out of the three pads, mostly because of the great formulation and the product delivering exactly what it claims to do. Then Biodance gets 4.0, which also falls under the same category as very good actually. Biodance scored less because of the sticky gel texture and also because the collagen story is a little bit ahead of its science. And Mediheal gets 3.8 for promising. Although I wasn't in love with packaging and the feeling of the toner pads, I would say it has a great price point, so if that's something that's important to you, this is a mask you can still consider. Now that we've put the product rating system at work, we got to test it out to see how the score nets out when we add in that experiential portion to the full rating. And ultimately, the right pad comes down to what you value the most. And from this rating, I think one thing to take away is that sometimes certain keywords are used for marketing and they're not actually what's being used in the formulation. So when you look at products, that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. So if there's anything that you agree or disagree with, please feel free to let us know in the comments below. You can see the full scoring system at thekedit.com. I'm Helen, and this is The K Edit. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching.